Think for a minute about your average day and think about what is the very first thing you do when you wake up in the morning. You open your eyes. And what is the last thing you do before you close your eyes and go to sleep? Well, according to IDC research, who have studied the behavior of people in general around the world, for some 80% of 18 to 44-year-olds, the very first thing they do after waking up in the morning is to check their smartphone. And as a matter of fact, most people do that within 15 minutes of waking. And over 60% of those people reach for the smartphone immediately upon waking up. Now, we're talking about marketing, so I'm wondering, what does this fact mean for marketers? And here's another little bit of trivia which might interest you on the important role that smartphones play in our lives today. 8 years ago, just 8 years ago, 80% of people's digital media time, or the amount of time they spent on digital media every day, 80% was spent on a desktop or a laptop computer, and just 12% of that time was spent on a mobile device. But now, fast forward to the historical year of 2015, and it looks very different. You might say historical because in 2015, for the very first time, mobile represented 50%, or 51% to be more exact, of the time we spend per day on digital media. In other words, the world in 2015 became a mobile-first digital marketplace. And here's just another indicator of how digital is becoming a bigger and bigger part of all of our lives. According to the research, in 2017, the global average time spent reading newspapers per day will be 14 minutes. Now, that figure of 14 minutes represents a drop of some 37% in just 7 years. And the number is continuing to drop. And here's some more facts. Reading magazines has declined 23% in the last 7 years. Listening to the radio has dropped 15%. And going to the movies or cinema has dropped 11%. And even the time watching television has dropped 8%. And another marketing channel we don't often think about, which is outdoor advertising, has declined 3% in the last 7 years. Now, the important point to pay attention to here is that these areas which are declining represent some of the major advertising and marketing channels that have been used heavily by marketers in the past to promote their products. And as we can see from the data, they're all declining. But now, here's a surprising fact. Despite the changes we observe in the market, the way you and I buy products is still rather traditional and hasn't changed much over that time. For example, the majority of us still go to a shop for clothing, food, home goods, luxury items, and we go to a real store. And from that data, we can see that in-store shopping still represents over 70% of retail sales. With in-store selling at a rate of 70%, we shouldn't forget that e-commerce sites, retail websites, and brand websites represent today something like 20%, and they are growing, so we can't forget that. But the important message here is that people, you and I in general, shop the same way, but the behavior of consumers, such as reading newspapers, watching TV, etc., is changing rapidly. And those changes are impacting the channels of marketing which have been relied on by marketers in the past. That's important to remember. Now, in an earlier marketing session, we talked about the need for improving customer experiences, or what we call in business experiential marketing. Well, What the above data tells us is that in-store marketing must not be neglected, and that experiential marketing in-store is a growing area of interest for marketers. And this message seems to have been heard by marketers because we can see this from the research data. For example, the breakdown in current experiential marketing efforts made by companies looks something like this. 45% of experiential marketing efforts are in-store, and just 19% is on social media. 14% is on the web, and 11% through call centers, when people call you on the telephone. 6% is through mobile, text, and just 5% is through email. So what's the story here? Well, based on the data we just presented, the story here is that there's no doubt, in fact, that the future of marketing has almost everything to do with digital marketing. But we must not forget in-store experiential marketing, which in fact can also be digital. And because of these marketing facts in this boot camp, we think that it's very wise to take a deep dive into digital marketing. And remember, we're only doing that because digital is the direction the market is moving in. And as a matter of fact, it is moving in that direction very fast because of the changing behavior of you and I and other people around the world. And for many of us, our digital devices have become very important in our lives. But, and here's an interesting question, are marketers aware that this is the case? And how will this change and shift in the marketplace impact the ways in which marketers engage with customers and consumers in the future?